Hey guys, Dan here with Battlefield Curator. Why would somebody want a M16A1? I mean, you can get a cool AR-15 these days with the Picatinny rails and all the gizmos and gadgets and accessories, but I'm gonna go over reasons why people still want and desire the M16A1 and different early variants. So, the first reason why people really like and want the old school style M16s are the history behind this legendary platform. That's right, the M16 platform in and itself was in US military service as a standard service rifle from like the 1960s all the way up until the 2020s. So here's a little rundown of the history real quick. Eugene Stoner, working for Armalite, which was under the Fairchild Company. Now they were manufacturing aircraft components, and he was designing a rifle that would suffice as a really reliable and state-of-the-art design. He developed the AR-10 in 308 for the US military, but they shot it down. He came back with a 223 variant, the AR-15, which stands for Armalite 15 for you guys out there that don't know what AR means. From then on, he pitched it to the US Army for testing. By this time, Armalite couldn't keep up with production, couldn't keep up with the costs, and the US Army really wasn't buying these rifles. So what happened was they sold it off to Colt. It was really an Air Force general that shot one for the first time and implemented it immediately into the Air Force. So the Air Force was the first US military service to start adopting this platform. Now those early M16s were pretty simple, didn't have too much of the designs that we saw in the M16A1, but the Air Force liked them. They field tested them, they adored them, and they adopted them. The US Army said, okay, we got to give this a shot for real. So they got the XM16E1, which was an experimental model of the M16 specifically for the US Army, and it had these different features here. This is my XM16E1 clone here. You can see that the upper here is an original Colt upper, about 1970s dated, and the barrel here is also an original Colt barrel. Also has the XM16E1 style 3-prong flash hider. Also has a nickel boron bolt, but back then they would have used a chrome bolt. The lower here is an H&R from Palmetto State Armory, and you can see that it is the flat side with no guard. The internals are all original Colt, and the buttstock is also an original XM16E1 style butt. Colt eventually ended up getting the contract for M16A1s. You could probably see some of the differences here in this photo between a XM16E1 and an M16A1. And by the way, guys, these are just my semi-automatic clones of the M16s. But yeah, main conflict that these were used in was the Vietnam War. And essentially, they were not well received by soldiers during that time. A lot of soldiers were used to wood and steel. I mean, even the big wigs in the Army wanted wood and steel still, but times were changing. They knew they had to go to a different platform that could compete essentially with the AK-47 and the AKM. And it fit the bill for the cartridge, the 223 or the 5.56 that was adopted by the US military. So for a little test here, we shot some ice, and you could see the difference in damages. All right, M16 had a few entries there, and there's your exits. Had some entry wounds with the 7.62 up here, but I didn't shoot anything down here, so I'm gonna try again. All right, so the first few shots with the 7.62 NATO came up there, and my last shot was down there, and then the exit wound looked like that on the 7.62 NATO. Interesting. So you had the M14 and the M16, and essentially they did not want to adopt the M16 because they like the wooden steel of the M14. They like the caliber. You know, this thing right here is made of aluminum, not made of steel like the receiver on the M14 and the M1As. So with that, some people say this thing felt like a toy. You also had a huge disappointment when the rifle was fielded out in Vietnam. There was a lot of jams, and that was actually due to the ammunition that the military was receiving. The powder was not right to spec, and it was actually causing more jams and malfunctions in the platforms. So with the adoption of the M16A1 in the early 60s by the US military, you saw a few more slight design changes throughout the years. And then eventually in the 1980s, you had the M16A2 that replaced it, which meant that it was in service for quite a while compared to other rifles of the time. All right, another reason why people really like these M16A1 clones and M16 platform clones is just nostalgia. The AR-15 is probably the most modular platform that we know of today. You gotta go back to its roots to get that original design. So a lot of collectors look for this original design. They look for Colts like this one. This is actually a Colt upper and a new made barrel. It's got Colt internals. It's got original buttstock, original handguards, original sling. You know, this is probably as close as you can get to the real thing civilian-wise. So for someone that really just enjoys AR-15 platforms, just going back to the original roots, the original, close to the original designs as possible with these early M16 variants is something that is on people's bucket lists. And that brings me to my next reason why some people really want the early M16 style rifles. Really, what it comes down to is availability. These are pretty available. If you go on Palmetto's website, you can get clones all day. They actually bought out the Nodak Spud company, and they created a sub-company under Palmetto State Armory called Harrington and Richardson. Sound familiar? Yeah, I think so. Under the Harrington and Richardson brand, they have these clones, which you can get full rifles, you can get parts, you can get lowers, you can get uppers. Now, some people really want to look for those parts kits, which come around every so often, and I've seen them at Atlantic Firearms and at What a Country. And those two websites will have some original Colt, probably 1970s Colt uppers and other components. I actually got this upper here from What a Country, and it's Colt, and it's about the 1970s to 1980s upper right here is what I'm looking at. On the bottom here is the Palmetto State Armory or the Harrington and Richardson lower. It is actually a pretty good match as far as color goes. Not too shabby, huh? Other than that, you can find other components through some of these other parts sites like Numeric or Liberty Tree Collectors or Apex. All right, some people really want this M16 style rifle just for accuracy, just for precision shooting, just for going to the range. Some people say, you know what, when I was younger I saw that and I really wanted one, so they see it available now in stores and they say, oh, okay, well, Palmetto State Armory's got one, or I can make my own, or I saw one on old Colt SP1 for sale, and some people say, you know what, that was a pretty accurate rifle. So people that just like precision shooting, that just wants an easy platform to have at the range for plinking, maybe they do some kind of competition shooting, they probably would go to a platform like this, the old M16 style, just because you got to think like 300 to 500 yards, you're gonna be pretty accurate comparatively to other rifles out there. Oh yeah, and the caliber 5.56 223, highly available right now too. You can get those cartridges online, you can get them in pretty much any box store. So when you talk about availability of these things, they're like everywhere and the ammo's everywhere, and they're just fun to shoot at the range. All right, so we talked about a lot of things, and really those are major reasons why people pick up these old M16 style rifles. Is just, you know, all those. But there's one other thing here. If you like tinkering, if you like projects, if you like building Legos, this is definitely a rifle for you, because they're just so simple. It's so simple to put together and enjoy at the range. You just need to make sure you do a few things right, and you should be good. Whereas other rifles that you might try to get a project for, try to make yourself they're going to be a little tough, because you got to think that you might need a little bit more precise tooling. You might need some machinery, some heavy machinery. Whereas this, you probably just need a vice block holder for the receiver. You might need a wrench, AR-15 wrench, and maybe a few other things, and that's about it. Also, what we said before was there were a lot of variants of this. You could try to build out all the different styles that came out throughout the years from the 50s and the 60s. So, and then don't forget about the dissipator, don't forget about the CAR 15. And as I mentioned before, parts are available through Palmetto State Armory or other websites. And if you wanted to build those almost historically accurate versions of the M16s that throughout the years that were made, then you would probably be able to do so fairly easily. Well guys, that's it for the video. Are you looking to get one of these cool M16s, or do you have one? Or you have multiple ones? Let me know in the comment section. As always, be sure to learn history and curate history. Pulverize the like button, subscribe if you haven't. Make it a great day.